Yes, Don. So, like I had mentioned to you, I'm still a student, and alongside being a student, since I have my new startup, I've dabbled across a lot of domains trying to find which is the best niche, like I was telling.
Mhm.
So, similarly, at which point did you think you wanted to be an engineer, or did you always know it, or when did you stumble upon it?
Well, I think it wasn't always going
Okay.
to be my path, but actually I think it was really because of the subjects I enjoyed at school.
Okay.
So I'm not great with questions that don't have a clear right or wrong answer.
Okay.
I'm very much, well, here's the facts, and I was always getting, if you write an essay, it was always, well, what you need to write more. And so that there's, for me, it's well, this is the right, and I need something with the right and wrong answer. So I was really drawn to anything that was science or maths or physics, that kind of thing.
So, which would you say is your most favorite subject if you had to pick between science, physics, and math?
Oh, maths, definitely. Maths for sure. And actually then I think that just led me down a path really, just then towards, well, what is it that I can do with all of that? And to be fair, I think it was the more that people said girls don't become engineers, the more I was like, well, I want to be an engineer then. So that just pushed me into engineering. And it's the problem solving thing that I really enjoy, engineering.
Exactly. I think it's like the delight of every engineer. Loving math has to be a part if you're like a studious engineer. So next up, we know how passionate about volunteering you are, right? At least in India, it doesn't naturally come up as a career path. So when did you decide that you wanted to volunteer, or was there a point you almost said no to volunteering? And if not, why did you say yes to it?
Well, so volunteering has always been over and above the job that I've done. So I've always had quite a full life. And I like this. I like to keep myself busy out of work as well as in work. But I very much feel that I need to give something back. So for me, that volunteering has been that finding a way of satisfying that need to be making a difference.
Okay. And there is at least in India, there are a lot of people, a lot of engineers that at certain point feel like they're still not ready to volunteer. They don't have enough resources to volunteer. What would you say to people like them? How would you suggest them, guide them through volunteering? Where would you ask them to start from?
I think everybody can make a difference with volunteering, just even if it's just a couple of hours here and there. I think if you're an engineer and you can spend time to go into a school to actually open kids' eyes into what engineering actually is, rather than sometimes they have preconceived ideas of what it is, that it's, it might be mucky, or like, more of a sort of, something that they wouldn't want to get involved with. But when you kind of expose them to all of the amazing things that you could be doing as an engineer, then you can suddenly find that there's some kids in that class that suddenly think, oh, that could be something for me. So that's a huge impact going forward. But so that's sort of just a tiny thing to be doing, or somebody so if you're further into your career and you can mentor somebody. I think even if you've only just left university and you've just started in the world of work, there are students who will benefit so much from that mentoring of your transition from that being a student and into the world of work. So I think I've met plenty of people go, oh, I don't know enough yet to really make an impact being a volunteer. But I think everybody has something that they can do.
Yeah.
And I think it changes as you go through your career. Certainly for me, when I was a graduate, it was going out into schools, and now I'm very much more at in the sort of management and leadership. Then for me, it's about sort of doing more about what can I do to sort of change the infrastructure that supports engineering development. So I'd sort of change your focus. So I think if I go into a school now, I'm too far away from where they are that they can't make that leap between myself. I mean, you'd be fantastic in schools, but then there's another frightening number of years, to get to the point that I am in my career. It's too big a leap.
Basically, you can start with something as simple as mentoring.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
And when you started off your career in the engineering pathway, like at least back then, there would have been very limited women engineers, right? So did you feel the necessity to be over prepared so that people take you seriously, or was there any point of time like that in your
Oh,
journey?
yes, all the time, and still do actually. That I think, but I also think that also has the benefit of also it drives me to always be the best that I can possibly be. But it comes from that insecurity that I'm not going to be taken seriously. So
Exactly.
so it's just yes forever.
And do you think, like, at least right now, there are so many facilities and a lot of infrastructure and initiatives available for women engineers to be in par with the men. But back in those days, you would have had a certain set of challenges to travel through as an engineer, a woman engineer particularly. How do you think the challenges have shifted? Do you think are they lesser now, or what are the new challenges you think women in today's engineering world face, coming from somebody from a technical and leadership perspective?
Yeah, I think it definitely has changed.
Okay.
I think when I started out as an engineer, it was very difficult to be heard, to have a voice. Because I was the only female engineer, I would always get talked over, and there were a lot of people who would take credit for the work that I'd done, and I was too timid to say, "Oh, actually, no, that was me that had done that." But I think that now, I think there's much more of a focus on allyship. So, and certainly I very much practice that, and by that I mean that I look out for this. And I don't. It's not just for female engineers. It's for anyone, everybody. I make sure that people aren't getting spoken over. I make sure that that if somebody's trying to make a point and they're struggling, then I will make sure that, because they're often my meetings, then I will make sure that the conversation gets directed, and so I can see that you're trying to say something. So I think that is the responsibility of managers and leaders to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate. And I think that has definitely shifted over the years. It wasn't really a thing when I was a graduate engineer, and now it is something that we as leaders, certainly where I work and the previous places that I've worked, we have all had that as part of our leadership charter to make sure that everyone has a voice.
Right. I think that, like, from an organizational point of view, is very essential, that you let everybody voice out their opinion so that you come up with like a cumulative, proper solution, right? That matters a lot. And has there ever been an instance where you're not prepared completely for something and you take that opportunity, you say a yes to it before you're completely aware of what you can do with it?
And again, yes, I think I've had a number of roles over the years where I've said, "Oh no, I don't think that's for me. I don't tick all of those boxes." I think it's quite typical actually of women to go, "Oh no, well if there's one thing on the list that I'm not ticking, then I'm not ready for that role." But I've still been pushed into those roles, and I'm grateful for that to have been the case actually. And you soon realise that, oh, actually, no, I absolutely can do that, and the things I don't know, I'll learn. So I think there is definitely a courage element to that, isn't there? That I'm more courageous now than I used to be, but I think I'm more courageous now because I've been shoved into things that I didn't think I was ready for, and I survived and thrived. And then you get to the point where you go, okay, I don't know how to do this, but I'm just going to jump in with both feet, and it'll all be fine.
I think that's what almost 30 years of leadership does to somebody, right?
Absolutely. And I think that the phrase, how bad can it be?
How bad can it be? Exactly. What's the worst that can happen?
Yes. Yeah.
Completely. Wonderful, such wonderful replies, very inspiring. Somebody from the perspective of somebody that is starting out, these are the kind of answers that would really help me out while I try to navigate through my journey.
Right, so Rithika, I'd really love to know about the project that won you the scholarship.
Yes, so first of all, very incredibly proud to have been recognized the Scholarship Award winner of IET this year. So the project that I did, it's called Hekio. I named it after a healthcare kiosk, so that goes as Hekio. So the product resulted from a problem that I noticed currently, especially in the rural India. If you see, people, the villagers and the commoners, they put off their hospital visits because they're not privileged enough to go and get screening done. Like we do regular master health checkup and all of that. So the villagers or the commoners in rural India do not sort to something of that sort because firstly, travel is expensive. They do not have hospitals in their surrounding of 30 to 50 kilometers. So they'll have to, that's the amount of travel they'll have to undergo just to get screened. And by statistics, if we see, it's only in the rural regions that the chronic disorders like tuberculosis, respiratory diseases, they spike a lot in those regions. And while these chronic diseases, while they're identified earlier, can be treatable, most of the mortality rates in the rural India is because the screening is not available,
Right.
and they do not screen. So my solution, Hekio, it is a healthcare kiosk integrated with a breath analyzer setup. So this breath analyzer is capable of detecting biomarkers of these chronic disorders from the patients through the kiosk itself, and it gives a screening metrics of how risky or how low is the factor of particular disease. So this is like an intimation to the user that, hey, you know what, I think you might be 80% positive of tuberculosis. And it's not diagnostic tool, it's like a screening tool.
Yeah.
So we are not replacing the diagnostic centers or doctors.
Yeah.
Rather, we are intimating when they'll have to go and tend to medical help. So that is what this project aims at doing, bridging the gap between the screening and seeking medical attention.
Oh, wow, that's fabulous. And such a great example of engineering making a difference to people's lives.
Exactly, totally. I think this is something like that makes the lives of the people in the low-lying regions more comfortable and more adaptable, almost at par with those in the urban regions.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you. Right. So, how has your journey been with the IET so far?
Okay. So basically, I have been an IET student member for almost 3 years now. And let's say my team and I have won over like 19 to 17 hackathons. So that is, and we received funding for several projects. That means we've had exposure to a lot of institutional and organizational events. But the IET and the Scholarship Award journey particularly tops all of it, because the kind of community that is encouraged here, the family-like community, and especially the choice of direction for IET that is intervening into the academic industry of India, because that is where most of the engineers, Indian engineers, are focused in. So this particular direction of IET, the entire concept of inculcating the sense of volunteering and innovation leads to helping the students create more impactful solutions rather than just projects. Right? Initially, people, when we come up with solutions, it will be, I have this problem statement and I'm going to give a solution for it. But rather an approach, the guidance of IET, a community like IET basically helps them introspect on the customers or the people that we're concerned with first, rather than going into a solution first approach. So all this that I've seen in IET has been really inspiring. It's been very welcoming. I've had one of the best standards of experience here in IET. I've always enjoyed. I've enjoyed everything in IET.
And have you found that the scholarship journey particularly has been valuable for you?
Exactly. It's been because like from the, however the scholarship sounds already, we have 44,000 applicants and you have to go through multiple stages of scrutiny to just pick a single winner. And we know by the saying of how such an event has to be held, there is a huge order of scrutiny, and only an institution with so much order and high standards can bring that out, right? And through right from my regional round to the finale, every single person that has coordinated with me has made me feel completely comfortable. And in fact, they've made me feel very home, be it my stay, be it the way I've felt accustomed to the habitat, not get nervous and all of it. Scholarship journey was impeccable, and it was at the right time, given that my startup had just started. The recognition I got through that was really valuable for me.
Excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. And I only met you today and I can already see why you were the winner. Right, so I've got another question then. So have the extracurricular projects that you've been doing sort of changed the way that you've seen yourself as an engineer?
Yes, I think without the extracurriculars, let's say I'm just an engineer, and then you start with a code first approach, and let's say I am not a huge advocate for coding at all. That's not like my first, my area of interest. So the extracurriculars have always taught me to, rather than, you have a problem and then you AI it and then you come up with the code and then, hey, here's the solution. Rather than that, the amount of extracurriculars that I've involved in has helped me analyze and introspect on my interest on the communication driven leadership. Basically, I love engaging, I love reaching out, I love doing the groundwork. I connect with the people that a problem concerns. So let's say the rural health, right? So I like connecting with people in the rural areas. Like, let's say my native is Nagarkoil, so it is a small village in Kanyakumari. So I can talk with people that are not open to technology, that do not have influence of technology. So I can talk to them on, hey, why don't you visit the hospital frequently? So I start the ideation from there. So rather than coming up with, hey, here's the analyzer, I was able to come up with the part that the main problem is that there isn't a medical infrastructure. So how do we fix that? You replicate something similar to a medical infrastructure. So you start with a problem first approach rather than a code first approach. Right. So I learned the idea of empathizing with the people, empathizing with who the problem addresses with, and then navigating to a solution rather than, hey, here's the set product and this is what I think is the solution. So the extracurriculars have helped me, wear up that part. I am able to identify that this is the proper approach. Yeah. And through my hosting skills, I've hosted an MC, the TEDx edition of our institution, and I've taken part. I've carried the administration of various college fests and events. So all these extracurriculars, along with the technical interests that I've had, have helped me express myself more clearly, bold.
Yeah, excellent. And I think what you're describing is such a great. A great thought process, actually, or a process to be going through, because I see so many engineering solutions that are looking for a problem where you've actually come around the right way around to say, actually, what is it that I'm trying to solve?
Exactly. So we have a product, they're like, hey, this is what I'm building. Where is the problem? Where's the market?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you have to do the market acquisition first, and then you come up with a solution.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Fabulous. Yes. So I've got another great one, actually. So what have you had to teach yourself that you didn't learn at university?
Well, something that university or even my schooling failed to teach me that I had to learn by myself is, it's part of the question I asked you initially. Have you ever said yes to something without being completely ready, right? I think that is something that I had to teach myself, because the Indian education system, it has always trained us in a way that we are sure that you're completely and 100% ready even before taking a small seminar, or be it your placements or board examination, whatever it is. Our education system has always trained us to be 100% certain that you're ready for it. And this more often than not overwhelms the students and whenever there's an opportunity that presents before themselves, they start to overthink whether they're completely ready for it. Hey, should I do this? Should I take it up or not? So that is the point where you lose the opportunity, right? So through my learning and through my own experiences of trying to ideate, navigate through the actual market and all of it, which the institution failed to teach me, I realized and understood that you first say yes to whatever is presented and you figure out the how part of it later.
Yeah, so it comes back to how bad can it be?
How bad can it be? The worst is you say something wrong and then you say sorry, and then there's always sorry for it, and then you do it back again. But at the altar, what you're missing out by saying no to an opportunity is so much potential, fame, and all of that.
Yeah. So what do you think that the IET could be doing more of for engineering students in India?
Okay, so firstly, all the openings that IET already has, I would personally say IET is already on the right track of trying to, make acquisition of the Indian students, because we know it's very clear that the approach in the UK IET section is completely different from how the Indian students are targeted, right? So the sense of volunteering and then participating in events, like in the presentation we saw today, most of the local networks are focused on, involving more students through hackathons, ideathons, make fests and all of them. That is the critical part. Personally, what I would say is, in India at least, we know, and it's like a global known fact, that most Indian engineers, they admire the global opportunity of being able to pursue their master degrees, taking up a job abroad and settling there. So basically, most Indian engineer mentality and their interest is towards global work acquisition. They want the westernized culture of going there. So I think another major opening for IET is maybe if we start focusing more on provision of more guidance towards how the foreign scholarships can be applied, where you can pursue your masters or how you can pursue your masters, or predominantly just making sure that being an IET member helps you attain a scholarship to pursue your masters in this particular university, and enabling this through various foreign institution partnerships or such can be really interesting, because once you tell the Indian engineers that, hey, you can pursue your masters if you're an IET member through this, they're going to love it a lot. So that would be my only suggestion.
I think it's a great suggestion. We should definitely take that back and see what we can do about this.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much. It's been so.
Firstly, Ram, thank you so much for your time. It was a lovely conversation.
It's been a pleasure.
I think we could wrap up by getting some advice from a woman to women. Basically, what would your advice be to the young women in engineering out there? How can they volunteer? How can they voice out their opinions or their skills out in the industry today?
Yeah, I think that the first thing I say is start small. Have confidence in yourself.
Exactly.
And anything that you do is going to have an impact. So I think don't be looking for some life-changing experience on day one, but just little steps. And I think the becoming a member of the IET and getting involved with the IET, there are so many people that can help you on that journey. And there are always people that you can learn from and see how they do it. And I think even from the point of view of, we talked about mentoring and that's such a great thing to be doing, that, and I think women mentoring women, because it's a different experience.
Exactly.
So,
it's the kind of experience every woman would want to experience.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I think start small, and I think once you start, I think it's addictive, actually.
Exactly. Right? Pretty much.